Scott Golden here, Pro Wrestling Logic, and we continue our TNT review series, Tuesday Night Titans, this time the 3rd of July, 1984, right on the hinges of 4th of July for the year 1984, and really a Hogan All-America centered episode. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, comment below if you like what we're doing, if you'd like a audio series created of a show you like or something that you're into, whether it be independent wrestling or a national promotion. We do ask that it is before the 1998 era, unless I am looking for people that are interested in covering that era as well, but it just wasn't my cup of tea, and I'd rather have someone else cover it unless we have nothing else to cover. In any event, on to the TNT episode. We open with a post-match promo from the Garden the night Hogan won the championship. Hogan, of course, I believe 10th WWF champion at the time. Of course, WWF was a big thing. Hogan holding on to the championship for more than 3 years, which at the time wasn't the longest reign, but biggest for the era. In any event, we open with him doing a backstage promo, including his parents and Andre the Giant and Ivan Putski pouring champagne over his head, which I've never understood that tradition. I understand sport; they do it in sports. I understand it's kind of celebratory, but yeah, alcohol in the eyes burns. Not a good idea. Anyway, Hogan's parents are included later in a promo on this program as well. If you've never seen that, now imagine that. Imagine Drew McIntyre's parents being brought over from Scotland or something like that. Imagine Becky Lynch's parents over from Ireland or Braun Strowman's parents. Just imagine the difference in time that exists there, you know? In any event, really iconic stuff. If you've never seen it before, I do kind of consider it historic required viewing for folks that may be new to the sport. Just going and checking out just how Hogan's received as the All-American pure athlete. Then we move on to a special interview with Hogan promoting a return to Minneapolis, Minnesota, AWA territory only this time, as a member of the World Wrestling Federation. And he brings up that Al DeRusha, who was the producer for the AWA program months before, was a member. He brings up Dr. David Schultz, his opponent later in the segment. He brings up Jesse Ventura being part of the expansion effort. So really, Hogan kind of saying, we're coming home. I'm coming home. Obviously, Hogan almost the AWA champion. That doesn't happen as he leaves to go to New York at the time, but several months of a feud with Nick Bockwinkel. Nick Bockwinkel, by the way, my favorite heel of all time. I love Nick, and that feud I've gone out of my way to go back and watch over the years, but certainly something of note here as Hogan really trumping the fact that the national expansion is really beginning to take steam, and then we move into the Hogan versus Dr. D match. I don't know if this is bell-to-bell the complete match, but probably one of the more complete Schultz matches in a major role. Dr. D, David Schultz, reminds me so much of Bruiser Brody, just that brawler style, that hard-hitting style. There is a point where Hogan gets busted open, and it looks like, to the point where Schultz actually hits his top rope spinning elbow drop. Looks like he could win. And then, obviously, we see Hogan take the initiative back with the Hulk up thing and bleeding profusely, but getting even and whatnot. What I find interesting is he's hulking up here. I wonder where the whole hulking up concept came from. All the AWA footage I've seen, he does it in, or most of it anyway, once he's a babyface. I just wonder where that began. If there's a fan who was around in 81, 82 when the Hulkamania thing started, and you know where that originated, I'd love for you to comment below. That'd kind of be cool to figure out. But Hogan wins, oddly enough, with a clothesline. Takes the fall after a clothesline. Imagine if that were to happen in 2020. Imagine if that were to happen in today's era. I actually wish it did, because, it would make falls mean more, that you don't always have to win with 3 versions of your finishing maneuver in order to win a match. Then we move on to Paul Vachon, the Butcher Paul Vachon, an AWA stand-up. This seems to be AWA-centric night, but He sings a song in French, and the fans are treated to his vocal stylings. Certainly something of a notable thing if you're interested in that sort of thing. Then we see him take a losing fall to Jimmy Snuka. Basic Snuka match. Snuka wins with the. I think he won with the splash. I have to go back and look, but pretty much formulaic Jimmy Snuka match. Snuka at this point probably the number 2 babyface, only behind Hogan in '84. Many people think Snuka would have been a world champion if not for Hogan's ascension, and maybe he was the backup plan, like the 1A to Hogan being A. But obviously his drug use and the issues with the Nancy Argentina murder and everything associated with that factors in a big bit to that. Then we see Gorilla Monsoon. Gorilla Monsoon saying that he was a former teacher. Monsoon talks about being called on to wrestle, invited into the wrestling business by an established wrestler. We see footage of him squaring off with Muhammad Ali and putting Muhammad Ali in a airplane spin. Again, iconic. Think about that. A pro boxer, perhaps the most prolific pro boxer of all time, certainly Muhammad Ali in that discussion, certainly of the television era anyway, in the ring and airplane spinned by Monsoon. Monsoon comments on Ali afterwards, saying, it's a big deal, and putting Ali over quite strong as the best boxer of all time. Captain Lou Albano out next. He joins the program, and I met Lou in 1996, right before I get into the business. He was an interesting fellow. Vodka was his friend. That is not a put on. The legend of him drinking before matches and to be 14 turning 50 and meeting Lou Albano, obviously 20-time tag team champions he managed. Such a major role in the Cyndi Lauper thing. I believe the real life story is that Lou is the one that encountered her on a plane somewhere and kind of bridge the gap for her to get involved in wrestling. If somebody that was around at the time knows more than I do, please feel free to comment below if I've misspoken. But suffice to say, Albano with the Hawaiian shirt and the bit of a slob, and he's burping and farting and just being obnoxious. If you're a fan of obnoxious promos, or if you're a fan of old school managers, worth going out of your way to check this out. He then does play the piano by purposely making a few mistakes along the way, but surprised that one former member of the Sicilians tag team is able to play the piano at that level. Had I not rewatched this, I had forgotten about it, and it surprises me, to say the very least. McMahon then interviews David Wolf, the actual manager of Cyndi Lauper. Wolf has the charisma of a rice cake here, basically saying that Captain Lou's full of it. We see several incarnations of the Piper's Pit, and Albano, during the previous segment, Albano basically, they switch in between Piper's Pit and Lou Albano being interviewed by Piper quite a bit. Basically Albano's whole thing, and it's interesting to watch. So if you like Lou Albano, or you'd like to know where the Rock and Wrestling Connection began, this is fascinating television. These two segments are fascinating television. But anyway, if you're into that sort of thing, worth going out of your way to see. But suffice to say, Albano says women belong barefoot and pregnant, that he wrote the lyrics to Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Time After Time, and all the other hits for Cyndi Lauper, says that she owes him, actually humiliates her, and says that he made her. She stands up to him, says she'll find a wrestler of her own, and then we'll find somebody to take care of the wrestler of the proper choosing. She later, of course, finds Wendy Richter. Wendy Richter and Fabulous Moolah's feud is born. They're born off of the benefits of Cyndi Lauper in the crossover era, and Lou Albano being the antagonist for this. So really, These two segments, the segment with Albano and the segment with David Wolf, the real life manager and I believe husband of Cyndi Lauper, or at least they were involved romantically for a time, I think. But really, those two are supporting characters in the development of that whole feud. Then we go to Private Terry Daniels, who does the military private thing, says he's part of the Sergeant Slaughter Corps. I met Terry a couple of times in the late 90s, probably 97 to 99, something like that. Very mild mannered guy, very polite, respectful, good in the ring, enjoyable, and we you just it's kind of flat though, in that he's cutting promos like he would cut a military enrollment interview. Certainly not something you have to go out of your way to see. Sergeant Slaughter signs autographs near the Statue of Liberty. Of course, Slaughter had left previously, I believe, in '83. He went away for a little while after being a heel predominantly, maybe 82, 83. So he's back here and he's a fan favorite, having the private and others underneath him. And then we see another clip of Mad Dog Vachon to close the program. Suffice to say, a much more interesting TNT this week, running 1 hour and 25 minutes and change. I'd go out of my way to see the Hogan stuff. I'd go out of my way to check out Lou Albano and the Cyndi Lauper stuff. Everything else kind of skippable, but certainly some iconic things on this program. And I think this is why I'm actually doing this review series, because I think, you know, the TNT concept gets dumped on because there's a lot of stuff there that's kind of goofy, but at the same time there's a lot of angle advancing, storyline advancing content that's worth going out of your way to check out. We'll be back with at least a few more of these today. Keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.